But I think sometimes teens and children just need that little bit of support. That sounded like that was really hard. It sounded like you were expressing anger at that time. And for them to see, oh, maybe that was anger, maybe that was fear, maybe that was sadness, maybe that was, what was that? So I think often they do need some support with the connection from their words to their emotions. And then often I think the key component is actually connecting their behaviors to their emotions. So I did this because I felt that way. And adults also need that support. Why were you leaning into that? If they had an outburst in the house and they wrecked their room, what was going on for them? I'm not interested in them wrecking their room. That's an outcome of their emotions. I'm more interested in what's going on for you. What did you feel? How did that soothe that? And what was going on for you?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. You are listening to Don't Be Afraid to Talk podcast with James. I believe if we are going to affect change, we must go back to the basic, which for me, in essence, is conversations. Talking and listening is key for growth, and I hope our stories will bring us together and we can draw inspiration from each other. Conversation will include topics such as mental and physical health, trauma and its effect, suicidal thoughts, recovery, and well-being. We will continue to raise awareness and offer a different perspective, a mindset or an idea that could inspire you to take charge of your well-being and to grow as a human being. Thank you for joining us today for another episode of Ask the Therapist. Today I'm joined with Padraig. Padraig is the OT coach online who is actually based in Cork. Padraig is a mental health occupational therapist, which we're going to be discussing today. He's also a positive and psychology coach and also specializes in trauma and is also a trainer. If you are listening today, have an open mind and we hope you can learn something from today's episode. Padraig, how are you?
I'm really good, James. I'm really good. And thank you so much for this. Thanks for inviting me on. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Yes. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Padraig. I'm a mental health occupational therapist and I'm based in Cork. The areas that I specialize in is trauma, anxiety, depression, self-harm, eating disorders. They would be the style of clients that I would see. I work with teenagers and I work with adults in that field. I have a background working within social care where I would have spent 8 years working in residential units with teenagers and also working in family assessment units. I studied occupational therapy and then I did a master's in positive psychology and coaching and moved into having my own practice about 2.5, 3 years ago and have been doing that and been self-employed since having my own practice. And I love it. Absolutely love
it. The fun of it.
Yeah, the fun and pressure, but I'm a big fan.
Yeah. Okay, before we get going, we're going to play a quick game called 1 for 1.
Okay.
Where I'll give you a word and you say the first word that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Simple. So there's only 5 words, so don't pressure. The first one is trampoline.
Bounce.
Running.
Peace.
Broccoli.
Yum.
Helicopter.
Height.
And last one is Big Brother.
Family.
That's all?
Wow. Cool game.
That's all. Just to throw you off.
Yeah, I like it.
Now we can focus on
thanks, James.
What you're good at. Yes. So our conversation today is about occupational therapy. So my first question is, what is occupational therapy?
Okay. This is a question that I get asked all the time. People come into the clinic and ask me the same thing, and they're after arriving to the door. So it is a question that is a little bit of a mystery for some people. I'm going to give you my definition versus maybe the definition you might find online. So I would call myself a functional therapist and an occupational scientist. And what I mean by that is when somebody comes in and they're having difficulty functioning in the world, they can speak to me about it, and I'm going to come up with practical strategies. And that's where the occupational science comes into it. So we are scientists in occupations. So and occupations are everything we do, from putting on your pants in the morning to having a conversation together, from sitting on a chair, from eating a meal, driving a car, sleeping. Anything we do, we engage in occupations, and occupational therapists specialize in the science behind that. We look at everything from the activity, the environment, and you as a person. We look at the sensory component of it. We look at the motor component of it. We look at the psychosocial component of it. We really break down everything. And we are very interested in function. So are you functioning? Are you able to engage in what you want? So it would be very well known OT for supporting people in the community, maybe older people in the community, with doing wheelchair assessments and doing accommodations to their house. And that is looking at them functioning. Can they function? Can we support them around using the wheelchair? For me, I'm more interested in mental health difficulties holding somebody back and functioning in the world and doing meaningful things to them. That's where I come into play. So it's a very different style model, but we both care for the same end results. Is a person in front of us able to engage in the world in the way that they love?
So when we use the word occupation, we essentially what we're saying is tasks, things that people do.
Absolutely. When you
Not
say absolutely, not
nothing
just.
to do with work.
No, and it can be like, so people would say that to me, are you a therapist for jobs? And I was like, if your job is meaningful to you and it's something that you really want to engage in and you're having difficulty doing that, we absolutely will support and facilitate. But an occupation is everything we do, from taking a drink is an occupation. And if you're having difficulty from that, if you've had a stroke and you're having difficulty, weak right arm, we look at how do we adjust that task. So that's where we come in. So occupation is everything. And that's why for OTs, we tend to split into different areas. So you'll have some that will be solely working in PEDS, where they'll be working with handwriting skills, where you'll be working with just functional ability, sensory integration, and you might have some physical. And then you'll have the mental health OT. And the reason why we would find ourselves falling into these slots is because of the complexity of occupations we engage in, and all our training then is very specific to that.
So what you focus yourself is the mental health side of it. So
Yeah.
if someone is having mental health difficulty
Yeah.
doing a particular thing.
Yeah. So I would say I would have a lot of teens that would come into me and they mightn't be engaging in school. I would have a lot of adults that would be having difficulty with relationships, with work, with achieving the goals that they want to in their life. And that's where we sit and we outline. So they might come into the clinic and say, this is what's going on for me. And I'm like, how would you like to see your life plan out over the next 3, 6, 9 months? What does that look like? And then we break down realistic goals, and that's where interventions come into play. And when I say intervention, that's the therapeutic approach that we would use. So it will look so different from every different person. My day at work looks very different. So James, today I had a few online sessions, so working with people who are all across the country and increasing that motivation, what was going on for them that was stopping them, problem solving, maybe difficulties that they were having from attending school, going to the gym, issues with relationships, what that might look like. So we kind of were working through some of that. Then tomorrow, for instance, I'm in the gym with 3 different clients, and that's just to encourage that motivation, that community integration. And these young people haven't been leaving their homes. They often mightn't leave their homes only to attend a session with me. And then we're looking at the science of why they're doing that. What's the purpose of them entering a gym? What does it feel like for them? All of the interventions have to be backed with evidence from the lens of an occupational therapist. We're very interested in evidence-based practice, particularly because of how vast our job is. Really, really important for us to to have all of our interventions backed with science. So these young people are mad to get back on track, attend school. So we're leaning into the gym, and the gym comes with tons of benefits. So not only are you moving your body and does that make you feel good, but they're now leaning into a new environment that would have normally maybe brought a certain level of anxiety for them. They're now around more people than they would normally be. They're engaging in a task that they really want, so they can actually lean into an area that they're probably a bit more uncomfortable with when there's not a task that they want to do. So they're getting tons of benefits from it, as well as moving their body, feeling good. And then I could be on the water with some, doing stand-up paddleboarding. We could go fishing. I feed horses, go for coffee, go for pizza, sit in some people's houses and just play cards. And what you're trying to do is hand them power back. Say, we can do whatever we want in life. This is what life will look like for you. And increase those positive emotions as well. A lot of teens and young adults have so much stress and so much worry on their shoulders that they've stopped having fun. They're really worried, they're very stressed. And really, for me, it's about enhancing that, injecting fun back into their life, something that's meaningful for them. So while I do one intervention with one young person, that's not going to work for others. Like me playing chess or playing cards with one, they might love it. Another person will throw the chessboard at me. So it's the wrong approach. Me bringing one person to the gym is going to work really well for them. The other person is going to want to eat pizza. That's okay. It's whatever they want to do. And then when they start feeling like they can start doing things that they want, they tend to push more and more and more because it feels good. The leaning into the uncomfortable is starting to feel good to them, and they get a reward system from that.
So this might sound a stupid question. So
No.
it's not so much a person is having like a mental block, for example. It's not just a mental block. There's more below that.
Yeah, so I suppose a lot of them may have diagnoses of autism. They may have diagnoses of anxiety, depression, ADHD. So it could be multifaceted, the blocks that they might have. For some, for sure, there might be just a block for them to think, I don't believe that I can.
Yes.
But there's many layers to the reasons why they can't. And they've often tried to lean into other therapeutic approaches like counseling and found that may not have worked. I work along some clinics and they do amazing works, and I work with some amazing clinicians, psychologists and psychotherapists, but sometimes they say, Padraig, this one is for you, because they're not able to engage in that thought therapy style. They need to move. They need to just feel good. They need to feel happy, and then maybe they'll come back and be able to talk about those things. So yeah, like I do think it's a mental block for some, but I think there's multiple layers why that block is there, and it takes time to calm that nervous system down before they can start leaning into the reasons why.
Yeah. Like if you want to do your typical talking, and you have that, let's say, block in this case, it's very difficult to get.
I agree.
It's very difficult to lower that down enough for you to. But if you're engaging in something practical, that might come to you. Not naturally, still painful, but it might come eventually.
I agree. I think I was delivering training at the weekend with an amazing team, and we were talking about this part. We're talking about the brain and how the brain functions. We're talking about when we're in that fight, flight, freeze response, and we're really anxious and our brainstem is fired up. The part to our limbic system shuts down and our prefrontal cortex shuts down. And our prefrontal cortex is the area where we can actually talk about what's going on in our emotions. So that doesn't actually function. We're just in that space of fight, flight, freeze response. So we need to come back to soothe that system first, soothe our nervous system. When we feel a little bit more relaxed, we are an ability where our limbic system can kick in, we can connect with people, we can feel love, we can build that relationship. And then we can move on to that prefrontal cortex where we're talking about our emotions, we're planning, we're making new. But unless we are calm, unless our nervous system is calm, it's not going to work. It's like if I just open up the front door there for you, James, and said there's 400 rats running through your feet, and I'm asking you to hold the conversation. You're going to be focusing on the rats running around the place. And for me, that's exactly when my nervous system is really heightened. I just want to soothe it first. Like, that's my priority. It's not future planning and Talking
Yeah.
about my problems, it's like, how do I calm down? I just need to calm down.
Great. Great.
Mm.
So it sounds like it's so different, obviously, and it's so personalized. So what can someone expect from an OT assessment?
Yeah. So I think the assessment process for us starts almost straight away. When I get an email, the assessment process is starting. When I get a phone call, I'm constantly assessing what the parent might be saying, what the person is saying. And then you have your standardized clinical assessment versus your non standardized. So I don't do a lot of standardized assessments, and that would mean that someone would come in and I'm assessing their function in comparison to the norm of society. So where might do a handwriting assessment there, that would be a typical OT assessment. We do sensory profiles, which I do somewhat frequently, and then we do non-standardized assessment, which is me constantly using my clinical observations, assessing them. How are they functioning? When I come into somebody's house or I meet someone when they first come into the clinic, or I'm in the environment with someone, my detective hat is on and I am constantly looking at them, looking at how they're engaging, how are they functioning, where is their nervous system heightened, where is it more relaxed? And that's really part of our assessment. It's ongoing, it's all the time. But most people might know OT assessment process as a standardized assessment. So, oh, this young person is having difficulty with handwriting. Can we get an OT assessment? Or this person is seeking an autism assessment. That's often done with an OT or an OT and a psychologist. So they're looking for a report and they're looking for evidence and they're looking for that. This is their difficulty. That's I'm I suppose that's not my main realm. I'm more intervention focused. So with the assessment, you'd often have the report with a list of interventions. I'm more straight in. Let's get this issue seen to. Let's do the interventions, and as the interventions are going, the assessment process will always continue.
So as you kind of spend more time with that person, ask them tons of questions,
Yeah.
the more you know about them, kind of the easier it becomes for you to kind of put a plan in place.
Absolutely, James. Absolutely, and that's the thing for me. It's I much prefer this process because when we're doing assessments and we just meet somebody and they just walk into the clinic, their nervous system is not suited. They are often
No.
dysregulated. So I'm trying to assess what they'd be like in their everyday today. The first time they meet me is not how they are in their everyday today. So I actually think getting straight in, spending some time with young people, let their nervous system calm down, let us actually spend hours with them before I start making any of those clinical recommendations that I feel would benefit the person versus what I read on the initial questionnaire. Now, I'm not dismissing that process, but I'd often find greater success in this model.
I think so as well, because I think if you're kind of interacting with a person from one to one, you'd know if someone's written off a sheet.
Yeah,
It's very hard to build a report if you're asking me questions and ticking boxes. Well, if we just sit there and have a conversation.
I fully agree. And you see people they put up a guard when a pen and paper come out, and they put up
Oh
this,
yeah,
and
definitely, yeah.
and particularly if I'm asking them to engage in tons of different tasks. Like I've often, because I would use an activity, an interest checklist with young people. So that is me finding out what they are interested in. So what activities make you excite you? What ones have you done before? And I usually do this in more of a formal setting so that we have some form of a contract. But you can watch some people, they're like, do I have to do everything on the list? You can see the defense coming up. And I might have done 2 or 3 sessions with them, very easygoing, relaxed, to one word answers. And it doesn't work because they feel like they're being judged. Because they are. I am assessing them. And it becomes quite transparent and obvious. So as much as I can avoid that process, the better. I think the more authentic you see a person.
Yeah, yeah, and you can tell, and the person can sense that straight away.
Yeah.
And if they start feeling like you're trying to judge them, because it takes a lot of courage to go into someone,
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head, James.
you know.
It
And
takes a lot.
if you start feeling like this person just judging me,
Mhm.
so the wall just goes up, like,
Yeah,
you
it
know.
really does. I think people who are willing to make that brave move and lean into therapy, it's courageous. It's and I'd explain that to a lot of parents about the process. I don't have a 2 session process. Oh, come in for 2 sessions or 6 sessions. Or I'm like, when they are ready and they feel good and they feel like they can lean into it, that's where we go. Sometimes that happens very soon, and sometimes that happens a little bit down the line. But they've made that huge leap to come in and meet a stranger. And we both know, as adults in our lives, as regulated adults, it's actually really difficult to open up and talk about our emotions. Imagine being 12 or 13 and trying to identify it, not even having the words to do it. So these things take time. We have to be patient. We have to let them lead the journey, and they feel in control. And you would see it really flourishes. It's a beautiful thing to watch, because when they start feeling in control, they lean in with this really honest approach. And I think you have to accept that for what it is, and not rush to an end.
Yeah, just what you said there on emotions, and well, I know from my experience anyway, as an adult,
Yeah.
I didn't even know what emotions was.
Hmm.
So when you're working with, say, teens versus adult,
Hmm.
do you think teens are more welcome into learning about emotions than adult?
I think I've worked with.
This is completely different to what we're talking about, just
No,
because you said
this is
it.
great, and I love it, because I love that you're leaning into these questions, because I think it really deepens the knowledge of, I suppose, what OTs do when they work with teens. So I think the biggest difference between teens and adults, or children and adults, is often they need support formulating their emotions, formulating their words around that. So with adults, I would be a little bit more hesitant with stating what I think they're feeling. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I think you're really sad right now. I think you're really angry right now. I'd be a lot more hesitant, because they should. But I think sometimes teens and children just need that little bit of support. That sounded like that was really hard. It sounded like you were expressing anger at that time. And for them to see, oh, maybe that was anger, maybe that was fear, maybe that was sadness, maybe that was, what was that? So I think often they do need some support with the connection from their words to their emotions. And then often I think the key component is actually connecting their behaviors to their emotions. So I did this because I felt that way. And
Yeah.
adults also need that support. Why were you leaning into that? If they had an outburst in the house and they wrecked their room, what was going on for them? I'm not interested in them wrecking their room. That's an outcome of their emotions. I'm more
Yeah.
interested in what's going on for you. What did you feel? How did that soothe that? And what was going on for you? And I think for them to go, oh yeah, it wasn't because I was like, I don't know, I just angry at dad or mom. It was because internalizing, I couldn't actually express myself, and I couldn't get the words out right, or I was completely dysregulated because I had such a crap day at school that day, and I just came home and exploded. But it's just connecting those dots. And I think we all, even as adults, we need a little bit of support. And
Yes,
I
we
err with
do.
a side of caution with adults, because
Yes,
rather
it's
than telling them how they feel.
yeah, because yeah, we know adults don't like that. But, yeah,
No, they do
but
not, Vince.
if you're attending like a therapist, that's a huge step forward. So
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely, and I
so
think the goal for us is to support empowerment. Like I know I've done my job when I don't see that young person anymore, and we have helped them develop all the skills to regulate their emotions and figure things out. And I think any good therapist should have the exact same model. They enter a young person or an adult, and they're like, how do I get you well enough that you never need to see me again, and that you have all the skills that you need? That's where we know we've really done our job and done it well.
brilliant. My next question is,
Yeah.
what does OT intervention look like?
So I think, as I was saying earlier, the interventions for me, it could be whatever is meaningful for that young person. We could be out, we could be feeding horses, I could be online, they could be in the clinic, we could be doing activities, whatever they want to do. That's the interventions that I would focus on. It's all about increasing positive emotions and empowerment in them leading their own life, leading their own choices, leaning into goals that are meaningful for them. I do outline a lot of goals, and for a person when they come in, if that is to make a career move, it's to increase their fitness levels. If it is for a young person to figure out how to regulate their emotions, to build better friends. So once we have the goals outlined, then the two of us sit down and we talk about what does an intervention actually look like to get you there. So what do you need to do today that's going to have a positive impact on you in 6 months? So let's say, for example, there's a young person who might really struggle with anxiety in social situations. Our interventions might be, okay, tomorrow I would like you to go into a shop and you, not mom, not dad, you go up to the counter and you pay. You pay with the card. You say, how are you? You start leaning into. So the interventions might look like leaning into that space where it would have been quite uncomfortable to build that sense of resilience. That could be one style of intervention that we might look at. It can really vary, but the majority of the interventions are often based around stuff that they want to do that makes them feel really good.
Okay, so so much putting things on them that they don't like to do.
No.
I think like, okay, I want to get you from, say, 1 to 10.
Yeah.
What do you like to do in the middle that we can start doing in small chunks?
Yeah.
For us to get to number 10.
And that's the key. What you said there, James, is like what they want to do. So if you're to look at like a physiotherapist, they often give us exercises that will improve our physical being and say, go off home and try 10 exercises. We often don't do them.
No, we don't.
And I know I've got these from training tons of times, and I hope my coach isn't listening to this. I swear I do them. But if they were on the other side of an activity that we loved and they were incorporated into something that made us feel really good, like if they were incorporated into a dance or incorporated into a space where we could sit and game and they could do it, OTs are more interested in that. And the reason we're more interested in that is because we enhance the success of the goals attainment and we enhance the success of the interventions. So, i.e., if I'm looking at somebody who might have some level of social anxiety and I'm looking for them maybe to build a bit of resilience in a group setting, I'm not going to send them into a group setting in an activity that they don't want to do, because they're like, not only are they struggling with the group idea, but now they're in an environment and they're doing something that they really don't like. But you can put a little bit of pressure on somebody when they're leaning into something that they love. So, I love doing that. I love, let's say, doing a baking group, or if it is a sewing group, or if it is playing Xbox together, or if it's going to a gym. You can start piling on the discomfort when they're focused on something that they want to do. So they're getting a reward system. They're feeling really good in the process. But there's a whole lot of learning that's happening as well, a whole lot of resilience. There's no point in me sending them to the gym to be around people when they hate it. So for some, it is, we sit in a busy cafe and we have pizza because they love pizza. And they're like, they feel really good. But now, before they know it, they're actually building an awful lot of resilience because they're around people. They're engaging, but it's doing something they love. You increase the chance of a repeat in that behavior pattern. That's the key.
And then, like that, if you're doing something that's not easy, but something that you love, you kind of forget about everything else because you're just enjoying what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Instead of like, oh, I have to do this. And
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. I think we touched on this, but I just want to make sure. How can occupational therapy help people? So
I suppose, how can OT help? What I love about OT is we're really concerned in the functional side. So I think when people come to OT, they're like, what is OT is the first thing. So what can we do? So if you have things that are really meaningful for you, we are, I feel, the best fit for that. So we will support you in doing whatever it is that you want to do. And we come with I find a really good base of training. So we really have a great knowledge base of the environment, the occupation, and you as a person. So we're willing to explore and break down and use a graded approach to help you lean into something that is really important. So I think OTs are underrated, and because I just feel, I know I'm obviously biased in the process because I'm an occupational therapist, but I absolutely adore the profession, and I feel we're just a great fit for helping people live the life that they're supposed to be living. And we're really interested in the moving forward, the attainment of goals, like the achieving, the growing, like all of these beautiful things that we should be doing in life, flourishing, moving. We're not interested in sitting in a space and just speaking and not moving and doing. We are all about the action, the verb, the doing.
Yeah, yeah. Would you spend much time in, like, say, people's houses?
So if I have done lots of different sessions, and I continue to, I work with maybe, let's say, 3 or 4 families at the moment, and all the sessions happen at the house. The reason they happen at the house is because we're at the early stage of the relationship building. So
Yes.
I need that young person first and foremost to feel calm and safe. That isn't going to happen if I just go, we're going to meet you in a clinic. They're going to be completely dysregulated. It's going to take a long time. So we're meeting at the home in an environment where they feel safe. They're building that relationship. We're engaging in occupations that they love. They're leading this. So we're playing chess, we're playing cards, we're having chats, we're having tea, biscuits, whatever that looks like. And then we progress to doing outside. That might be in their garden. That might be in the field in front of their house. And then eventually we might go for a spin. We might go for a McDonald's. We might go play some pool. We might then do a climbing wall. And then they start eventually meeting me outside. Or if they have a lot of anxiety with the idea of getting on a bus, we might do interventions around the bus, actually getting on a bus ourselves. So it really varies, but the work in those cases will start when a young person has an inability to, at this point, to come to a clinic. I would usually encourage, if they have the capacity to come to clinic, to come, versus going straight to their house. But it's only the ones that I know they may not have left their house, or they don't leave their house only in emergencies. That's where we go and we build, and we just it's there's a process to it there, and I think everyone's journey is individual.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
there's never a set, okay, I will do 2 sessions at home and then straight away they'll be fine. It could be 4, it could be 5. On the 5th session, they might feel comfortable leaving. They might feel comfortable for another 3 after that. You just got to support the person where they're at on that day.
And would you do some work with people with autism?
I would say much of my caseload have a diagnosis of autism, ADHD. I would say 80 to 90% of them are neurodiverse. And they come with their own challenges. I myself have ADHD and I'm dyslexic, so I would be seen as neurodiverse as well. So I definitely empathize with the ADHD and the struggles and with autism. And the sensory components that come with that as well. They may have a lot of sensory sensitivities, and that can become quite overwhelming. That's where OTs can come in really and specialize, and they use that detective hat to do a sensory profile where that standardized assessment can come in really helpful. And then we can see, oh, this environment is going to be really overwhelming because you're in an environment where the sound is too loud, or there's too much touch, or for whatever reason that might be just too much. So I would work with a lot of young people with autism.
Yes, thank you.
No problem, James.
My next question is, which is now I know a little bit more. It's silly, but I'll go ahead. So what's the difference between a physical and occupational therapy?
So I actually think some of these overlap. I think both of us care about the function of a person. And I suppose I'm not a professional in physical therapy, so I don't want to talk down their career either. I think we are detectives in environments and occupations. So while they work on the body, and so do we tend to really care about the environment, how that impacts it. What about the occupation that we can grade? How can we do these adjustments? I think that's where our specialties come versus a physical therapist where they might just be working through the injury, working on the body. They're not thinking as much about the occupation and the environment. That's where we come in.
Yeah.
That's where I would see the clear difference. I hope I'm not talking down physical therapy.
No, we're not. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
what's required for the person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you. My next question is, these two words I seen yesterday. So the first one is activity of daily living and functional mobility.
Yeah.
What are they?
Very OT language. So
yeah.
we use them all the time. It's written on on every report, I would say. Again, I do use activity of daily living versus functional mobility. So both of them are incorporated. They can both interlink. So activities of daily living is what we do. It's the activities of everyday living. So that's getting up, brushing your teeth, it's having a shower, putting on your clothes, eating food. All of those things are activities of daily living. So for you to survive and to live, you need to do these activities. So that would be ADLs. In a hospital setting, when it comes to seeing if a person is able to be discharged, we as OTs would be very interested in this. Can they achieve all of the activities of daily living that are meaningful for them? So can they bathe themselves? Can they get up? So we would come in and assess. And we'd often see standardized assessments inside a clinical setting. Sorry, in a hospital setting. We have the tea and toast test, where they get a person to make a cup of tea and toast, and they watch them and they watch their ability. And you might kind of think tea and toast, anyone can make tea and toast, but the level of complexity that comes with these tasks is immense, from a cognitive to a sensory motor. There's for me to reach out my right hand to pick up my water bottle, to know where my mouth is versus the top of this, for me to have the ability to take a drink, know the weight of this, know what's light enough of a tap for me to lay it down. There's tons of things happening there. There's from looking at all the neural connections from my brain to my hand, all of the message. It's really actually quite a complex task that we pay no attention to because we do these things on the day-to-day. An OT would be very interested in watching somebody, i.e. making some tea and toast. And we would hear stories of somebody who might have had a stroke, where they're sitting and having a real great conversation. We're having the chats. Everything seems great. They seem like they're flying. And then we watch them trying to put the bread in the kettle. And it's just that they've missed that mark. Or they might be trying to put butter on a cup versus a butter on a knife to butter the toast. And they've missed that. And we can see that by watching them and assessing them engaging in their activities of daily living. So that would be that. The functional mobility component, again, very much, this would be of a real strong interest through physical OTs versus a mental health OT. So we're looking at how they're functioning in that activity. Where are their struggles? Are they functionally able to mobilize between one task to another? But it's very OT language, all right. And these words, this is where I think an awful lot of reports get lost with people, because it's the language like that disconnects people. It's like they read that, it's like, what the heck does that mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to actually break these down and, in my opinion, erase a lot of this language. Either become very familiar with explaining it to the person, or we start deleting it and coming up with actual language that's everyday use versus functional mobility and ADLs.
Too technical for me.
For everyone, James, for everyone, honestly.
And just on ADL, there, what you're saying about, let's say, making tea and toast.
Yeah.
Like, say for me, it's just one task. Like, I'm not thinking of the steps that it requires to make that. But for someone, for them, it might be like the little tasks that they're struggling with. As in, like, I see it as one task. One person might see it as 5 or 10 different tasks.
Yeah.
And are you assessing where the gap is, like where they're stopping?
Absolutely. I think we really break it down. that comes into a task analysis. So
Yeah.
we're analyzing the task, and we put on our detective hats within that, and we really break every single step down and see where is the gap, what is missing, and until we can visualize and see them engage in the task, and then analyze it afterwards. That's where the science really comes into play, where we're looking at the sensory, we're looking at the motor, we're looking at the cognition, and we look at the person first. We really care about the person is always number one. There's no point in jumping straight to just making amendments with the environment and the occupation. Like, and some people want to do that. Like, I think when I say some people, it would be maybe the clients would go, oh, can you just fix the kettle or make the toaster? I think the
Yeah.
core component is always working on the person. And from a mental health component, I always want to work on the person first, because I want to make the person as strong, as happy, and as healthy that they can engage in any environment that's thrown at them. When we are constantly adjusting environments to suit someone's needs when they don't need to, we're not building that skill set that they can have. So I think that's where it comes into play. And how even from a physical component, if you're looking at somebody who's struggling to make toast in the morning, put on their clothes, if you're to look at how that would impact on their mental health, like we throw on a t-shirt, pair of jeans, clip on our belt, put on our shoes, socks, we get out the door to get on a train, bus, tram, car, whatever that looks like. Very little thought. If it takes you 25 minutes to try to clip in your belts, like you're already fatigued, you're exhausted. There's a reminder that you're really struggling, and that can really put an impact. So I do think they interlink mental and physical OTs, but because of the complexity of the interventions, they tend to be separate. You tend to have a physical OT here and a mental health OT over on this side.
Especially when it's like activities that you used to be able to do.
Absolutely. And you lose the identity of you as a person. Like, so this is who I am. I am, because I think we all carry different hats. Like, I am a father, I am a brother, I am someone who's interested in health and well-being. I'm a friend. I have loads of different roles, and in those different roles, I have different things that I do, and I want to do really well. If I can't do them, I lose my role as a person, as a friend, as a dad, as whatever that might be. That would destroy me. They destroy my mental health, really impact it in a negative way. So what we want to do is support you to just be the best version of you, to have lean into all those roles.
Thank you.
You're welcome, James.
Thank you. And what is the biggest challenge you face?
In life or in work, or both?
In work. Doing OT.
I suppose the biggest challenge is letting my clients down. I never want that to happen. That's the biggest thing that I take on a lot. I take their care very seriously, and like I've met with lots of different complex cases, and often when I met with them, I go straight to, I need to like read all these books and what, even though I have tons of academia behind me and tons of books and research articles, I'm constantly, if I'm not working and going off a run or hanging out with friends, I'm reading or learning and growing. So I think the biggest challenge for me is I'm just fearful of letting anyone down. I just want to do the best job for them. They have trusted me, both them and their families have trusted me with their health and their care. And I don't want to let them down. I want to do the best job for them, because I feel really privileged and have a huge sense of gratitude for anyone who has said, we trust you enough to hold this space. So that's my biggest challenge, is I don't want to let anyone down. I want to work.
Because it's very hands-on.
It really is. You have a lot of weight on your shoulders. A family's coming to you, and they're at a point where they're really struggling with life, and there's a lot of difficulties. So you've a lot of weight on your shoulders for sure. Families are amazing. Like, people are incredible. Like, they're really, when you see someone not gliding through, but I suppose thriving through mental health and coming out the other side and leaning into all of these uncomfortable things and having success. It's a beautiful reward in itself.
The
And
journey.
oh, and it's amazing, and I feel really privileged to be part of that. I've seen people who have just come leaps and bounds through therapy from a space where they couldn't leave their home to now engaging in education, to having friends, to to laughing, to joking, to the sense of freedom. It's amazing to be on this side. So I just want to do the best job I can for all of them, and that would be my biggest challenge. And I suppose work-life balance, I'm a bit of a workaholic.
Do you have work-life balance?
No. I talk to everybody else about balance, but
Yeah.
I do my best. But I think for me, work is such a passion for me. So I look at when I'm reading and doing work that it's kind of like a hobby. People would disagree.
Yeah.
They're like, don't do it but I do. I genuinely love what I do. So I'm really interested in all of the field of mental health. So I tend to, my downtime is often watching podcasts or listening to audiobooks, or that's and it's often learning. But no, I love it.
And do you ever when you meet a client, sorry, for the first time,
Yeah.
and they're struggling with one thing, and do you find throughout that journey that one thing could change to another?
That's a great question, James. And I yeah. So from the positive psychology and coaching component, I think coaching has really served me really well in my job. And where coaching comes into play is for me not to rush with an answer. So somebody comes in with a problem and I'm like, here's your intervention, here's your solution. Coaching really helps me sit and keep following and asking more questions and more questions. And often we come to a completely different area that is actually really meaningful for them. And as we're progressing through maybe one problem with one client and they're getting success in that, they start wanting to address another. And intervention, it's like, oh, okay, I've taken care of this, but I also have this other area. So our journey will flow. And when I come, I will do prep pre all sessions. So I'll have a rough idea of what we're going to do, maybe topics that might arise. That goes out the window when they come to me. I might come and be prepped to do maybe a sensory profile with them, and then they land and they are completely dysregulated. They're really upset and they just need a space to hold and go through that. Sensory profile gets scrapped and we just have to really adapt. And your work flows like that. And I think that's what makes you a skilled practitioner. It's never about you. It's never about what you've organized. It's like, what do we have? What does this person need and want today? And how do we serve them to make sure that they get those needs met?
Like I might come in one issue and before you know it's like, oh, wait, I thought that was my issue, but it turns out it's not.
And it's so true. And I think a lot of people come in with that. And I've engaged in talk therapy for a very long time with one amazing skilled practitioner. And you'd often think, oh, this is something that's going on for me and this is holding. And then you get in this space and they're like, have you ever thought it in this way? It's like, whoa, like they just dropped the bomb. And it's like, no, I haven't. And I think for a lot of people engaging in therapeutic supports, sometimes they think this is it. This is what's going on, until we start unpacking that and they realize that isn't it. That's not what I need or want right now.
Yeah, that can happen. It's like, whoa, this is a bit too much now.
Yeah.
I only came in to fix one problem.
Not 17.
Yeah, now you're dropping this on me. Yeah. Working at home with people, like, you must feel like a family to them after a period of time. So you're there for, there for so long, but it just depends on how long it takes the person to.
James, I've worked with some families for 2-3 years. So you absolutely are part of the family, and they will call you at random times and they will seek you for different reasons, different supports. You become very much part of the family and they really trust you. And that's the real privilege part. And when they first meet me, I'm a stranger and it's like, who is this person? And we are handing over the health and well-being of either ourselves personally or our children. So I think that's why I really worry, and why I want to do the best job, because the I suppose the connection and the relationships you build, and without those positive relationships, both from building relationships with the parents and building relationships with the kids, you have nothing. Like they won't, like therapeutic relationship is at the forefront. And we
Yeah.
know ourselves, if we've ever engaged in any type of therapeutic support, if we haven't connected with that person, forget about it. We don't hold weight in their words. We're more eager to get out the doors and to get into it. So I think, and the research is really clear on this as well, like for successful interventions, for a successful therapeutic journey, the therapeutic relationship is the most important thing. You build that, parents will feel safe, they will feel secure, they will lean into the suggestions and the interventions. The kids will feel safe, secure, they'll lean into things that are uncomfortable. If you don't have a therapeutic relationship, you're the wrong therapist. It won't work.
Definitely, definitely. And when you work with communities, are you still
Mhm.
working with communities?
Yeah.
Are you working like, say, you go into community center? Are you working with individuals? You're not working with a
Mhm.
group, are you?
Both actually. So I work in community centers and I work with organizations as well, and I offer training. So let's say on Saturday, for instance, this week I was offering training to a group of social care workers who are working with young people, and they need support about understanding trauma, what happens with the nervous system, what's going on, what happens with the brain, how does that have difficulty functioning,
That
and then
fun
what
stuff.
all the light-hearted stuff.
Yeah.
And then what can we do? And that language is really difficult to digest, and it's taken me a very long time. So I suppose for me to fully understand it, I had to break it down and see the practicalities, and that's where I would deliver training. I would also offer training to organizations around positive psychology, around burnout, what that might look like. I do some work as well with other youth organizations, with doing collective groups where we're offering just a space to offer support, peer support, and for them to hold a space where we're actually exploring varied issues, but we're doing it in a group setting. So, and I deliver training in schools as well. I suppose training is quite a large part of what I do, and the schools are often seeking the same. They might be seeking understanding the sensory systems. What does a sensory break look like? What does trauma look like? So I think that's another component. Yeah,
Thank
really great.
you.
You're welcome, James.
And how did you get into OT?
It's a great.
One of my last three questions.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
ask away.
How did you get into OT?
So when I was away traveling for years. I was outside of Ireland for about 5 years, and when I came back and wanted to put on my big boy pants at 26, I was like, right, I need to get a degree. I thought I wanted to be a social worker. I looked into social work, and I started my journey in social care. And I soon realized it just wasn't for me. I felt like there was something missing. I loved evidence, and I loved goals, and I loved a start and end. And I think OT gave me that. At the time, my nephew was actually engaging with an occupational therapist, and I was looking at what they were doing, and they were engaging with a function and they were playing games with them. And my nephew had dyspraxia, or known as DCD, and I could see the work they were doing, and it was amazing. It was working really well. So they were engaging in play and activities, and my nephew was functioning in a really high level afterwards. I thought, I love this. I want to get into this. So then I started my studies. I looked into it, applied for the course, and I got the course. And then I did the master's in positive psychology and coaching afterwards. And because of my background working in social care, I could really see a need where people couldn't attend a clinic. And it was in the midst of COVID. There was young people that were struggling, self-harm, suicidal ideation, and they needed interventions at their home. So I started my own practice, and originally the work was just delivering work at people's homes and local outdoor spaces within the 5K region, sticking with
Yeah.
that. So that's kind of how it started. It started with my nephew really getting excited about OT coming to life and seeing that it actually worked, a therapeutic
Yeah.
practice that worked for kids. And I was like, I got to get involved in this.
You're like, that looks fun. I want to do
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. I was like, these people are just playing games and they get paid
Yeah.
and it works and kids are getting real success with it. I was like, this is get me involved in this.
Yeah. Like the occupation for a child is just play.
Yeah, and I think we forget that we are supposed to, as adults, play too. Like,
Big
so
time.
I look for any excuse to just kick a ball around and mess around. Like,
We'll forget that playing is still a big part of human experience.
it really is, and joy and happiness and like play is massive, and I couldn't agree more. We've forgotten that this is actually. We're supposed to play. Society has told us that we become too old, so we try to do it within board games and chess and cards and mess around. Go to a playground, go on a swing, slide. Smile, enjoy. Like our bodies are designed to move and have fun in the process.
And my other last question is, what do you do for fun?
Ooh, what do I do for fun? People ask me this all the time because they think I'm a workaholic because I might be a little bit.
It sounds like it, yeah. But yeah, what do you do for fun?
Read books about trauma.
I do that too.
I actually really enjoy that. Audiobooks around psychology. I run and I cycle and I swim. I've signed up for some races this year, so it pulls me away from the laptop and gets me moving my body, and I enjoy that side. I enjoy going to the gym. I enjoy sitting around playing with my daughter, doing silly games, making poo jokes and drawing pictures, and that's where I get to be, I suppose, my happiest and actually fully switched off and fully present. Otherwise I'm often drawn towards a few different areas, but just chilling with her.
Yeah. And my last question is, if you attend therapy, what would your ideal therapist be like?
If I attend therapy, what would my ideal therapist be like? Wow.
You can't say yourself either.
It wouldn't be. I wouldn't be able to listen to me. I would want someone to be honest. I would want someone to call me on my shit. That's what I would want. I would want someone to not try to just like everything's going to be good, and like I suppose the weight of the therapeutic relationship is really important, but the goal for us is to be moving forward through. So it's a really important part for me, but I'm not there to tell you all the good stuff either. I'm there to go through the hard journey with you, and I love that about a real strong therapist, and I have one. She's like incredible. Like when I engage with her, she would really pull you on areas of your life that aren't serving you, and so that's what I would love: honesty and strength and knowledge. Someone who is very knowledgeable in that area, so that I can trust them. Because if they weren't like being strong and being able to come forward, if I didn't trust their ability, I would have it very difficult to lean in and listen to them.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
What can I ask you the same question, James? I know this isn't. This shouldn't be me asking you. What would be yours?
It's not about me.
Every time I ask a question on a podcast, they say it's not about me. Stop asking questions.
I'm gonna have to think now. I'm gonna have to think. For me, it would be, I think, someone that's open, because I think I struggle with openness myself. And if I sense the person's not open, I just close up.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, I start answering questions with questions.
Okay.
It's like, yeah, and I've been doing this for so long that, like, if you answer me a question that I don't want to answer, I'll respond without even knowing I'm responding.
Okay.
I'm not giving you the answer you want. I'm responding something completely different.
Okay. You lose your authentic self in that process as well.
Yeah. Like, you might ask me how do I feel, and I tell you, like, do you see that game yesterday? And I don't even know I'm doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think openness is a big thing, and being unable to make a judgment. Because I think I already have enough self-judgment myself. I don't need to do.
Okay.
and I think honesty,
Mm-hmm.
and honesty and feedback, because I don't get much feedback, so it's always good for someone to tell me the right and the wrong, especially the wrong.
Especially, well, I think
No, sorry, especially the right, because I focus more on the wrong.
if you're that critical of yourself, for sure, I think you probably need to be told the areas that you're doing well. I think we can be self-critical. I think critique in our lives is good to a certain degree. Like, it helps us grow and helps us learn. But if we can't see what we're doing right either, that's not good. Like, if we just think that this is who we are and we're just terrible at everything, we tend not want to lean into anything. So we have to see the wins, for sure.
And I think I spent a lot of time in a critical part that is just normal to me. So it's to have the opposite. It's good.
Are you coming out of that space now, James, or are you still in it?
I have awareness of it that's happening, so that's always a big plus.
Yeah.
It's the practicality of it. I have the knowledge of what I'm doing. The practice of it, on the other hand, is the challenging piece.
Because it's when something is so heavily embedded into us, it's like asking us not to be like a human being at times, like to try to come out of that behavior or pattern. I have some of it myself. There's certain parts of me that are so embedded, and if I was to take a step out and look at somebody else, I'd be like, oh yeah, you can't do that. That behavior isn't serving you, and that you're dropping your boundaries and you're doing all of that, and it's very easy. But then when you're in it and you've that moment in front of you tend not to see it. So it's
Yeah.
it's a forever journey. We're always questioning and learning and growing. It's a forever journey, for sure.
Definitely, yeah. That's why I try different modalities. At the moment, I'm more focused on holistic stuff,
Yeah.
because I need to let things out.
I think I actually saw you once at we were both at a Josh Conley breathwork class.
Yeah.
I've done some Pat Dibley breathwork class, and very interested in trauma, where it sits within the body, and how maybe from that prefrontal cortex, where we have maybe very clever narratives built in about ourselves that we can just regurgitate and say this is why. Sometimes we need to dive a bit deeper into actually find who are we versus
Yeah.
the story we told ourselves that this is who we are. It sounds good, but no, we need to dive a bit deeper. So the holistic side, I'm very curious and leaning into more and more as I get older.
Yeah, it's painful as well. Not that much.
Really, 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 really painful. Really
Yeah.
painful.
It's only when you kind of start doing, you're like, yeah, I wonder we don't do this.
Yeah. Once is enough. I'm good.
Yeah, it's like, but once you kind of open that door, it's difficult to close it.
I agree.
You know?
It's yeah. Pain we don't want to experience. We don't want to lean into. So, and that's what I mean about that clever narrative that we have created about ourselves. It sounds fantastic. What for me it has done is to soothe the pain, for me not to feel, because I've already found the answer. And my therapist is incredible. She would always say, like, you're not rushing for an answer, you're rushing not to feel. So you want to get to the end result. So tell me why this is the way it is. She's like, because you don't want to feel the hurt. You just got to feel it and go through it. It's like, I don't want to. No. It's great, though. It's great. I think we need to question, and we need to learn, and we need to grow. And yeah, I think, yeah. And when we're in this space and we're speaking about it, I think it's really important that we dive deep and we look at all the modalities and what's out there, because what we're showing, I suppose, people who are listening, there is answers. You might have tried one modality and that mightn't be for you, but maybe start leaning into other therapeutic supports, other therapeutic ideas. Be open-minded, as you said. I think that's a key component. There is support, there is an answer, and you just might know it right now, but keep leaning into it, keep asking, keep looking for it. What I would hate to hear is someone who doesn't have hope, and that for me is when there's a loss there, and that they don't have hope, and they feel like I can't grow, I can't get an answer, and so I just think stay open, keep asking, keep questioning, keep leaning into different things that might be helpful for you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a quick review on my Facebook page, Don't Be Afraid to Talk, or DM me on Instagram. The show notes will include all of the relevant links from today's episode. If you haven't already, please download, leave a rating, and share with your friends. You might just reach that person who needs to hear this message. Please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. I am James Lumumba, signing off with gratitude.